Nation, Harry here back with Don Crawley in Seattle. So we were having a little chat offline about moving, and you said you found a lot of stuff, and you found some old-timey microphones behind you when you moved about 3 months ago. It's always a fun adventure moving, right?
That's well, okay. Adventure is one word that you might use to describe it. I might find a few others as well, as I'm sure you probably would too.
There we go. Hey, I want to talk about a keynote you've given, how to bring humanity into the world of technology. So what's going on there? You said there's some pillars.
Yeah, so there's 5 principles, Harry, of IT customer service success. And that's when we follow those 5 principles, that's how we bring humanity into the world of technology. And I observed as a technical trainer teaching people how to work with Cisco systems and Linux servers and so on, that there were 2 separate and distinct groups of IT people. On one hand, you have people who are leading satisfying, rewarding, fulfilling lives and careers. And on the other hand, you have people who are struggling. And so I began to wonder if there were quantifiable, observable differences that differentiated the 2 groups. And it turns out that there are indeed 5, you called them pillars, which I love that term. I call them the 5 principles of IT customer service. And they start with competence, which we talked about in our last interview. You know, we talked in the hiring process how it has to start with competence, that you have to have sufficient technical competence in order to meet the requirements of the job description. So that's I think it's pretty obvious, but there's a debate about it in IT about whether you hire for customer service skills or tech skills. But I think it starts with having sufficient technical competence to perform the tasks of your job, right? So the principle number 1 is deep technical competence. Principle number 2 is where we get into the human skills, and it's compassion. And compassion we'll define as having an awareness of another's suffering combined with a desire to alleviate it. You notice people who are hurting and you want to help. You care about your fellow humans. So that's the compassion component. And then next is empathy. And empathy is the ability to imagine what the other person is going through, to try to put yourself in their position. You know, it's not uncommon for people to say, I know what you're going through, but the reality is that most of the time they don't. So what we try to do is we try to imagine how we would feel if we were in the other person's position. Let's say that you're an IT support engineer and you get a call from an administrative assistant who's freaking out because the printer's printing something wrong.
Yeah.
The typical stuff that you see as an MSP. And so you might roll your eyes and think, oh gosh, there she goes again, or there he goes again.
Yeah.
Or you might instead, and this is what is typical of the first group of people, that you would think, wow, okay, I remember how freaked out I was when I got a blue screen while I was working on an access control list. And so I get it, and I'll be there to take care of that for you right away. I mean, you don't say those words to them, but in your mind, you think about it.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing. There's a guy named Simon Baron-Cohen who is related to Sacha Baron Cohen, by the way, who wrote a book called The Science of Evil. And it's a creepy title, but it's a fascinating book. And in it, he talked about how Nazism, for example, happened. And he said that in the presence of empathy, there can be no evil. And so empathy, even though it's principle number 3, it may be the most important, you know, and does that really matter? But it is incredibly important to have empathy. Next is to be a good listener, to listen, as Stephen Covey says, with the intent to understand, not just to respond, in his great book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh yeah. Yep. Still have it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's one of those timeless classics.
Up on the shelf, as they say.
It's behind me on the shelf. Exactly.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Well, and I actually pulled it out for a training that I was doing last week because I needed to read something from it for the group that I was teaching. But Covey says, listen with the intent to understand, that most of us, when the other person is speaking, we're thinking about what we want to say. We're thinking about our response. Guilty as charged. And what Covey says is, instead of doing that, listen to understand. And Harvard Business Review added to listen to understand and remember what is being said. And in so doing, we dignify the other person. We give them a sense of respect. And so listening is critically important. And just a side comment on that, one of the most common reasons that organizations call me and ask me to come in and talk to their people or to work with them through our online training or my books or whatever it is to give a talk is because there's an issue with listening. and they want me to help their team become a better listener. We, in fact, even put together a mini course on how to be a better listener on our online customer training portal. So, I mean, it's critically important. So
Yeah.
listening is principle number 4, and principle number 5 is the principle of respect. And there are 2 aspects to respect. One aspect is how you feel about a person. For example, Harry, I've known of your work for years and years and years,
Thank
and
you.
I've respected you because of that, even before we met.
Thank you.
And well, you're welcome. But I'm not saying that to suck up. I mean, it's really true. You've built a great reputation for yourself, and there are other people whom I respect as well because I feel respect. But the other aspect of respect is the behavior choices we make toward another person. We don't have to feel respect for another person in order to treat that person with dignity and respect. And I have a video on my YouTube channel about that, and somebody commented and said, oh, well, great. Now finally the flat earth racists are going to get the respect that they deserve. That's not the point. And I mean, I get what he's saying.
Yeah, I understand.
Certainly, you don't respect those goofy ideas, but or in this case, not even goofy, but hurtful ideas. But you can still treat the person with dignity and respect by using your manners and not allowing yourself to be lowered to their level. So those are the 5 principles: competence, compassion, empathy, being a good listener, and treating people with dignity and respect. And when you do that, then you bring humanity into the world of technology.
No, I appreciated it. I think the pandemic and the remote work, I think we're becoming a more empathetic, compassionate audience than we were. People are realizing what's important, right? Well, I can go on, the days of the early Microsoft and the long days and all that. Hey, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month. Hey, Don, where can people learn more about you?
I am so glad you asked. DonCrawley.com, and that's CRAWLEY, or CompassionateGeek.com.
Compassionate Geek, sir. All right. We'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. All right. Take care.